Hey guys, welcome back to the Danger Planet. My name is Brandon, and today I am joined by Landon and Longton of the Bad Fohaku channel.
Hello.
Oh my gosh. And of course, Sam from the Danger Planet.
Hey guys.
And today we're covering the Fae keyword from the Neverborn faction.
Let's just take it away. We're here with Titania and the Fae keyword. Let's just slap Titania right in most pools, for my opinion. You can try to argue maybe specific pools. These are two masters where one's not just directly more broken over the other. And I feel like, honestly, you can pick whichever one you want, mostly based off of what you just feel like. There might be one or the other might have a slight edge in specific pools or strategies, but overall, they're pretty solid into whatever you want to play them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty reasonable. Titania 1 in general, as somebody who has played her probably quite a few times in the tournaments, I've been taking her for pools where I want to kill stuff. So she has a pretty crazy teleport, which is nice to get her into range. So she can make a 50 mil marker, her underbrush markers, anywhere within 6 inches of her. So you can like tow it right to the edge and then place her on the other side of it, giving you a substantial teleport. Plus she like flies and stuff, which is like fine at movement 6. But the real bread and butter on Titania 1 is her Awakened Hunger. That's how she does the damage. She uses her bonus action to slam her underbrush markers into people, which pings them for 1, and then Awakened Hungers them with the built-in plus flip if they're in her terrain. You know, 2, 4, 5 with plus flips and injured is pretty good. It does some stuff, and then realistically, you're probably going to either stone or cheat in some crows at some point for Into the Thorns to make her 2, 4, 5 at 3, 5, 6. At 3, 5, 6 repeatedly is quite good. I think that's pretty solid. So, like, yeah, I mean, I think Titania's most pools. There's not really anywhere that she excels, I would say, but there's not a whole lot of places that she can't do stuff. And like her Cruel Disappointment aura is neat. You know, it stops her from taking severe damage.
Yep.
Yeah, most pools is
Oh.
probably where I'd go. Sorry, Landon.
Yeah, I would say that, just to bring up a counterpoint that maybe is more relevant when we start talking about the title, is that this master is a bit more, as Brandon was saying, jack of all trades than I think the title version is, in that you can drop it into pretty much anything, and it's got a little bit of tech to deal with something. You know, it's got the hard to wound, it's got the ping damage off Queen's Command, it's got injured to really, deal with your high damage models, it's got plus flips on Awakened Hunger to deal with any neg flip defenses. And instead of having some sort of like narrow tech, it's just a bucket of wounds and life leech to keep you alive. And Cruel Disappointment to stop you from eating anything big. So it's kind of just like that. I don't know what to expect, so I'm just going to put this on the table.
Yeah, I think you guys kind of nailed it. My only question here would be, in cases like this, I think this is the first one of these that we've done where the original and the title master really are about as good as each other and about as useful as each other, even if their uses are kind of different. So I'm wondering if that means they're like both in most pools, or if they're both in specific pools, or how do we want to do that, logistically?
I mean, realistically, I think that they probably are both in specific pools, but I think that they're both. I mean, I think Titania 1 is probably more versatile for sure, but I don't know. I mean, Haku, what's your Titania 2 plan? Were you going to also say most pools, or were you thinking specific pools?
I was also actually going to go with most pools. I really feel like a lot of what they are is more choice of play style than anything else.
Yeah.
So you could take either in most pools, which means they're both most pools. I buy that.
Yeah.
The reason why I struggle to, give it the most pools rating on T2 isn't necessarily because I feel like she's more counter tech, but more so that I feel like there's a lot of different things that just make Titania 2 have a much worse game, because I think she relies a lot more on underbrush than Titania 1 does to have an effective time.
Yeah.
So when you run into things like Bayou, where you've got the Gluttony and the Steamroller, or you run into just I don't know, what's another really good mark removal? Someone who plays a bunch of Yanlo,
like a bunch of guild mages. I don't know. There are things.
Yeah.
This is where I'll actually take the direct counterpoint to that. I feel like that's a choice in play style when you play her. I feel like you can play her the much more heavy support monster, using injured stun with third law and then just bashing people with her attack.
Yeah, I mean, that's
getting
also
coordinated
an option.
strikes.
Yeah.
where I feel like it's really just playstyle at that point that you're being edged into, and maybe one's more optimal, but I don't feel like it stops her from being a pretty decent model.
It does, but that's fine.
Wild. But Sam, so you're agreeing on Titania 1 with most pools?
Yeah, most pools is fine.
Neat. Let's scoot over to Ms. the Queen.
Yeah, I think we made enough points. I'll continue to make the argument for most pools. I can understand wanting to put it more into specific pools because I do think, in general, strategies that just kill things are pretty hot at the moment, and strategies that support things are a little bit worse. And especially because this really works around the Fae keyword more so because of Queen's Champions upgrade, especially Fae minions. You're kind of putting yourself into a corner. I just don't think that's completely what it is, because Injured Stun on a move duel is just really good, and I think a stat 7 willpower duel with Coordinated Strike is also just quite solid at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. Titania 2 definitely was one of the masters that I didn't really like right out the book. But after having played with her and seen her performance in a couple of tournaments, specifically, I guess notably Doug Bowman's Gen Con run with her, I think that she definitely has a lot of legs. She's not particularly straightforward, but she does this sort of support role, which is not particularly the best thing right now. It's not bad, but she does have a keyword full of some pretty tanky models, and she has a couple like abilities of particular note. She can draw 3 cards in a turn, which is really nice with her Behold the Glory Withered Rose trigger. As Longton said, the third law gives injured 1 and stunned, which is and it's a stat 6 against move, which means you're like gonna hit, and I guess you could theoretically bump people around with Into the Thorns on it. I think her upgrades are probably where it's at, though. That's sort of the bread and butter of her strategy in most cases, because slapping them on her Autumn Knights or any of her minions does a lot of work, because they let you do her pulses or her auras and stuff from them as well as her, and then also it gives you plus Ramen plus Grodal duels, which lets you automatically turn on the Autumn Knights parry. It lets you automatically proc Into the Thorns, which is her faction specific thing. So if you're punching people near her markers, you get to extra damage to teleport them around. It does sort of blow that it's only restricted to minions, because this could do a lot of work on like Killjoy or the Malisaurus, but I think she's sort of an all-comers type sitch. Definitely support stuff, but she has some tanky models to support, which is nice. So I think most pools, if anything, maybe I'd bump Titania 2 down a little bit into specific pools, but yeah.
My last banner to raise for Titania 2 in specific pools is mostly that since Titania 1's such an all-rounder, the reason I'm looking to put the title down, even just agnostic of whatever my opponent's dropping down, is if I'm looking at the schemes or the strategy and I'm seeing something that's going to really reward me for keeping one specific model or multiple small specific minions alive and on the table, just because of, like you said, Brandon, how tanky and how well she supports these Autumn Knight type models, where you have the stat 7 defense, you have the built-in puncture, you have the hard to wound, and you also have this amazing ability that you didn't even mention, which is Cleansed by the Wood, where you can just no TN flip, heal something for 2 and give it shielded. And so when you're looking at schemes like Vendetta or Public Demo, or just things like Guard the Stats, where you just are rewarded for standing in one place and not dying, that's when I think to myself, maybe Titania 2 is better than Titania 1. And maybe I just show up to the store and I want to play Titania 2, but if I'm going to a tournament and I'm looking at the packet ahead of time, that's what I'm looking for if I'm going to plan out saying I want to play Titania 2 instead of Titania 1 because I want to win.
Yeah. And also I think Titania 2 just has an easier time scoring. What's that one called? It's not research mission. Load 'em up. Thank you. Because she gets a free one every turn, no AP, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I tend to basically agree with Landon's call on where she's good. Like, she's, this is obviously a Titania that wants you to park your dudes in a specific place and then not have them die ever, basically, or not at least without a huge amount of effort. That's something you like often have to do. Like, that's something that's a really valuable skill to be good at in this GG, and I think that she's really had a glow up with the GG change, just because the thing that this GG is encouraging you to do is specifically the thing she's super good at. So if she is specific pools, which is fine, it's a very broad range of pools. Like it's not that specific. There's a lot of situations where you're gonna be like, damn, I'm really glad that my 7/6 Autumn Knights with armor and hard to wound are just like sitting here chilling. So if that means, if that's the border between most pools and specific pools, like how common the specific situation is, then I'd say most pools. But it is definitely a specific thing that she does. That is her thing, and if that's not valuable to you, you shouldn't be playing her. I just think it's going to be valuable to you in almost every game.
Yeah, I guess last night I'll just say before I move on is she just feels for me it's not really like specific pools, even though that's what we have. It's more, as like Landon slightly alluded to, she gets countered by a few things, and you can generally tell those are coming by the pool more so than the fact that like she's that good at the pool itself. Is what I feel. But either way, I feel like that's good solid talk on her. So we'll move on to the totem, which of course is an auto occlude. Totem good. I mean, it's significant. Doesn't really do anything besides the fact that it's another underbrush marker / it turns into literally any of the models that die that were minions or enforcers, which is strong. Like, it's just strong.
Yeah,
We had first emissary, but what about second emissary?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very concise. It doesn't have a bonus action, which is like the only gripe I have, I guess. But like, there's no world. I mean, there's no world that you don't take it. It's a free model, but it's no, it's fine. I mean, I've never once used it spit venom action, I think, ever, but I have almost used Mold of the Other in every single game because suicide running one of your like high damage enforcers, or even replacing one of your Autumn Knights when they die is just really good, and having a second one of those is wild. And like, you need like a 9 for an Autumn Knight, which is fine, and it's built-in Mold of the Other, which I think is the only built-in Mold of the Other mask in the game. I think the rest of them you have to have the mask too. It's like 10 for a kill. No, it's 12 for Killjoy and Malisaurus, and like 9 for like the Boar. Yeah, no, he's a good model.
Yeah,
This guy's so annoying.
I did use spit poison in my first game playing him though.
Oh, who did you spit poison at?
Who did I spit poison at? I spat poison at a ghost.
That does not sound very effective.
I had focus, so it was all good.
Oh.
All right. Well, Sam, do you want to add anything, or are we just going to move on?
I mean, yeah, I've had poison spat at me. It kind of sucks when it hits you, but like this dude's kind of it's kind of weird. Like, this is one of the many mini games that Malifaux contains, and the mini game here is like, can you kill the Gorar before it has a chance to turn into something useful? And a lot of the time, the answer is going to be yes, because it's not super hard to kill, and if they keep it super far back, then whatever thing it turns into on like turn 4 is not going to be contributing that much to the game. But if you like don't invest resources in dealing with this guy, and then he turns into a Malisaurus, you just feel like ass.
Yeah, rebirthing the Malisaurus is wild. I will say it is like, even if you can't really keep him not far, because if you put him anywhere near, he dies, because he's size 3, which is, it just means he's going to be seen over pretty much anything, right? So like, your Autumn Knights don't hide him, your big dudes do, but like, I don't know, he's sort of wide enough to be seen from space. So
yeah, I will say this. It's not keyword locked, so as Landon pointed out, I think that Emissary is normally one of the most amazing models to just make this into, or whatever obviously you alphaed with and died immediately.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good use for a 12.
Yep. All right. On to probably one of the coolest looking models in this keyword, and also the most useless. I would never hire this model. That might be a bit of an exaggeration.
It's not. It's not an exaggeration.
The biggest problem I think he has, as like amazing as an ability as the K is, which it really is, especially with built-in into Thorns, you're honestly thinking, man, this model has to be good. It has no bonus action. It's largely irrelevant for this crew. And it also kind of just dies. It's defense 5, decays 8. I don't know. There are just so many. The biggest problem is it just competes with so many other good models, and the decay is just not worth it. Weirdly enough.
Yeah, I hired Aeslin, I think, a total of 3 times, and I think it was in my first 3 games of Malifaux, because Titania was my first master, and then I put her back in my box, and I will never take her again. She's literally the worst model in the keyword. I would never hire her for 8 points. She dies.
Oh my god, it is a girl. She has tits. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, or you could just read literally any of the stories. But yeah. Yeah, no, Aeslin is Titania's like hench lady. Her it's her like it's her like right hand ambassador, and in every story she's always just like, I can't believe you insulted Titania, and Titania's like, whoa, Aeslin, calm down. That's like literally just what happens.
No, it's true. Yeah, no, I'm very sad that my Christmas tree Aeslin never gets to see the table. I've played it for a few henchman hardcore demos, but it never feels good. Not even then.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aeslin is pretty much exists to be in the story and be like, "You gonna take that, bro?" But yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's a model that when you look at the card, you're like, all this stuff kind of looks fine, but it just doesn't come together as anything that's worth 8 stones.
Yeah, it's really hard to pin down why it's bad, but just seeing it played enough, you just know it is.
I think
Yeah,
Aeslin's
it
really
just doesn't.
close. There just needs to be like one thing.
Bonus action. I think that's literally bonus movement action. I think is all it really needs.
I mean, that makes any model good.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
most
yeah,
models.
Yep.
We'll see. Maybe Weird will hear this and decide to buff Aeslin in the next round of things. But I strongly advise keeping her next to the board, and every time you're about to activate Titania, just be like, "Whoa, Aeslin, whoa, calm down," and then go with the Titania's action.
All right, on to the Erymanthian Boar.
Tree pig.
Yeah, Tree Pig. Tree Pig's cool. I really like Tree Pig. I probably just put him in most pools, maybe, probably. It might be specific pools, just when you like really need a model that can, go around the map. But all in all, its abilities are pretty decent. I don't know. It just comes together as a 7-cost enforcer. Being able to prevent damage on a lot of your tankier model really allows you to just like have a scrum fight in the middle using your underbrush markers as just damage reduction, which is just really nice. And he warps through severe terrain, which can be obscene distances sometimes. Having Stampede makes him being a stat 5 also not feel terrible. And the fact that he has a trigger on everything, even though he has to declare it, they're all pretty decent triggers. So it's all good.
Yeah.
All good.
I feel more like specific pools. I mean, I think that his like terrain blipping from through the brush is very neat. But it's also very, very pool dependent, right? Like you can have games where it just won't ever actually do anything. And like Forest Fungus would be good if it worked for everybody, but it works for beasts only. So it's like the Malisaurus and like the Rougarou, and then like nothing else, I think, that you would ever take in Titania. Kurgan's not a beast, right? I just
think so.
I don't think it is.
No.
So like if it were like if Forest Fungus were beasts or friendly beasts or friendly Fae,
Yeah.
I would say most pools for sure, 100%. That I would play it. I painted it. It looks cool. It's a great model. Good texture. But no, I'm like not a fan. Maybe if I played it more. I mean, Ambush is good. He's not unimpeded though, so like that's a huge problem. Or does Through the Brush give him unimpeded?
I mean, it's quasi unimpeded.
Forest
right?
Fungus gives him
Oh,
unimpeded.
Forest Fungus gives him unimpeded.
It also gives all of your friendly beasts unimpeded as well.
Yeah, which is great. It's very cool. But the beasts that you have in this list are like the Rougarou.
Well, the Rougarou is kind of okay.
I wish if the Bultungin were beasts, that'd be cool, but they're not. No, I don't know. I like it's cool, and it feels like it's more of a Ulix thing than Titania, but I don't even think it is good there. But no, I mean, I don't know. I could hear an argument for most pools, but I think I'd say specific pools. Longton?
I actually really
Landon,
like this
sorry.
guy. Because Through the Brush works on all of your what do you call them? The underbrush markers. So he gets to jump around quite a bit with that. I don't know how that would only really come up in some games. I mean, he's much more for Titania 2 than Titania 1. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I think for like Titania 1, he's specific pools to never hire type, talking. But for Titania 2, I think I would put him in most pools. Like you'll have enough underbrush on the board that he can go wherever he wants, kind of play the edges. And sometimes there's just schemes that are good for him, and he's really good at that. So.
Yeah, I got actually the underbrush is in that you can throw down in Titania 2 without using AP to do it. I think actually is a pretty strong argument for maybe I will tip the scales in my personal compass towards most pools.
Also, Rougarou just become much better models in Titania 2, and keeping them alive has a lot of value.
No, that's very true, but that's a lot of points to sink into like a second bubble, because they're already super expensive.
Entirely fair.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Through the Brush, and I play as someone who plays Ulix. With Ulix, it's really finicky to like make Through the Brush do what you want it to do. But in a crew that can just sort of blap down severe terrain literally wherever is exactly perfect for it, this thing's threat range is absurd. It's really, really good, and yeah, like you're not benefiting from the tech if you're not bringing a lot of beasts, but some of the best tech on it, like specifically the eating underbrush markers to stay alive, is something that has kind of diminishing returns the more people it's applying to. So you can realistically, in some matchups, you have to obviously gauge it, but in some matchups you can use underbrush markers to set up a nice little highway for your pig, and then just launch the pig into the enemy and let it just beat face and be extremely durable and difficult to remove because of those things. And so your opponent basically has to either devote like way too many resources to dealing with it, or now it's in their back line just sort of like casually killing like totems and vulnerable things. And sometimes some lists don't really have like stuff that can be easily murdered that way, but some lists do. So I don't know. I think I would say specific pools, just because I think that you have to decide beforehand before you hire him if you're going to be investing a bunch of resources in like making his little underbrush fort. And if you're going to be hiring the beasts that obviously make him much stronger. But once you pretty much take him all the time. So.
Why?
All right.
I'm gonna call that the purple pig ladder, Sam.
Okay.
Because
Pig ladder is psycho.
It's the Neverborn pig ladder.
Pig ladder is psycho behavior.
All right, on to Killjoy, another model that I used to play the hell out of, an outcast. Now in its Fae only locked in Neverborn status, I used to think this model was fine when M3E first came out, and now I'm debating whether I put it in Never Higher or not. And I'll be willing to say it's counterattack, just because there are some times where they don't have a lot of minions and you want to just go in there and murder people. And this guy can still do that and then die and then maybe come back to life. But largely, it's much closer, I think, on the Never Higher, especially with Titania being built the current way it's built and the current models it has access to. It's probably much closer to Never Higher.
Yeah, I would probably put him in Never Higher.
Just do it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do that.
I'm holding on to old fond memories. Just do it.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, he has some stuff going for him, and like the demise ability where he heals forward as unburied and unburied, so you just get it back is cool, because you can get a couple turns where you do like 6 damage to something, probably, right? But like the case is super specific. He's not a henchman, so you can't fix in the onslaught trigger. You have to have high mass cards, and this crew already wants to do other things with the high mass cards, like not as frequently, but like I don't know. And the to get him to come back, you have to kill a minion or the model that it's on. Actually, I don't think it's specifically a minion, but you have to kill the model that it's on with blood sacrifice. So like you're never gonna put it on any of your Autumn Knights. That's an insane waste of money. Like you're never going to put it on a henchman. You're never going to put it on Titania. Although I guess the upgrade, the upgrade gives you the ability to like bleed on forest marker on your markers and then make them hazardous for a turn, which is like cool, I guess. But like you're never gonna you're gonna sacrifice Titania to rebirth Killjoy
if it wins you the game.
I mean, sure, if it wins you the game, but like, realistically, what is the use case here? Like Waldgeist,
chain activation. That's it. That's the only use case.
I don't like. I guess I don't know. You can't. Do you have to put them on? On
you can put them on anything.
Or you can put them on any. So I guess you could put
it on a Wicked
Doll. Yeah.
Denying the first part of assassinate.
I mean, you're not wrong. I don't know. Sure. Wait, no. What? So sacrifice Titania. Yeah, great. No, stop.
All right. Here's my argument for specific pools, unless you're not done.
No, I'm done.
Okay. Firstly, that whole letting Titania bleed on the underbrush marker, just because she Queen's commands it, gives her a ton of damage. That activation. It makes Into Thorns have Awakened Hunger be a -4 as opposed to the -3 you're talking about with 3 instances of damage, that chews through armor. So like that right there gets me into counter tech specific pools territory to begin with, because you're essentially paying for this, amazing upgrade to put on Titania to boost your damage output that also happens to come with a passable, not good, but like passable but for 10 stones. Like Killjoy can put out decent damage if he ever gets there. And the most important part about Killjoy is that in certain pools that exist, right, not dying when you're killed is situationally really important and good. Like, for example, I believe Cursed Objects doesn't give away a token if you bury for Demise Soil. Someone, like, cancel me out on that if I'm wrong immediately.
No, you
No,
have to die.
Right.
in-
Oh, if it
Actually
didn't
die.
die, it doesn't die.
So, like, contextually, you now have a model that has absolutely no consequences for being in the middle of the enemy in a pool where you score points by being in the middle of the enemy. So, like, that in itself has value. You also come with like this cool upgrade, and if any one of these things wasn't true, maybe you wouldn't ever take this guy, but I think there are times where you want one or both of these effects. And like 3-4-6 with Onslaught's still really good. We can't pass up on that.
I mean, you're not wrong. All right. I will meet you at specific pools.
Yeah, I'm not telling you that you have to hire him in every single one
But
of
so
your
okay,
Titania
but how do
games.
you like what? So, but there's no way to damage Titania unless you like punch her with something. So you're
What?
talking
No,
like
you
You
use
just
her
enter the
bonus
thorns,
action.
Yeah.
Your
you
bonus action
for
can
it.
damage yourself. It's all models in base contact with the moved marker.
I guess.
The trick is like you can either create the marker, jump to it, then push it through you and the other model, and then beat the crap out of them. Like there are a few ways to get a go off. I've seen it. It's funny.
It's really good.
I've never actually seen it like win because you have Killjoy instead of like Ryder or M.
Yeah,
Sam?
that seems more cute than actually good. Like, I'm sorry, 10 stones is way too many stones for this jerk. Like, that's a kind of a fun little gimmick that I think you could sometimes do. Or you could just spend 10 stones hiring real models. And then, like, I think your list is probably going to be better most times. So if you're in like the super narrow, super specific, like cursed objects versus like what, like Hoffman 1 at this point, are we talking about? Like,
It's not even just like models with armor. It's also like soulstone users. You don't want to ever stone the 2 damage ping or the 1 damage ping or the other 1 damage ping, right? Like,
sure, it's just it feels a little narrow. I don't know. I'm with Haku. I'm like standing in the field with tears in my eyes, throwing rocks at Killjoy, like, go away. We don't want you around here anymore. Killjoy's kind of like looking sadly at me and like looking over his shoulder as he goes into the forest. That's where I'm at with him.
I do like the idea of Killjoy being the wolves from Game of Thrones. That's like, we did it.
I feel like that reference is a little more timeless, but sure.
I'm not going to die on this hill. I've said my piece.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, let's just move on. I think specific pools is fine. I think you can find a decent, funny edge case for it. And to be honest, I don't think it's bad. It's just I feel like there are better options. So leaving it there is fine. Now on to probably one of the more tilting opinions I'll give. Malisaurus Rex. Not a good model, guys. God damn, it's an amazing looking model, but it's not a good model. As we've kind of gone over, it is a beast, so it works well with the Emporion, the boar, the forest boar.
Tree pig.
Tree pig. To become a pretty decent, like, unkillable model in like Wedge. So I'll actually, I might be willing to give people specific pools on this model. I'm not sure how much I care about that. But if you're like specifically on Wedge, hold the mid, God, there are still better options. But it's never, this is going to be like the hardest thing for me for this keyword is a lot of these models are probably playable and you can probably get good results with them. But I just feel like they're just being outvalued. So why would I hire it? Becomes a much harder question to ask when I'm also being like, holy crap, the value of Emissary is dope.
That seems to sort of be the problem with Neverborn as a whole. I don't think that it's specifically just this faction, but like the Malisaurus is cool. It's a great model. It's very large. It's not particularly difficult to kill, despite it being hard to wound in 12 HP because it's defense 4 and willpower 4. So like the best use case scenario that I have found for Malisaurus Rex is yeet him up the board into something, hope that you will do it a murder, and then do it a second time once you do it with the Gorar. Both times it will die, and both times it won't be that hard for your enemy to remove. But like what you have to do is kill like 10 soulstones worth of models or more with basically one activation of the Malisaurus to get the actual value that you pay for the model out of it. And that happens very rarely. It only happens if your opponent doesn't know how to play against it, or puts models in the direct line of sight of it or direct range of it. And that's just like bad. It's cool and it does stuff, but it's like very easy to kill. I don't think it's worth the points. I like to hire it because I really like the model and I painted it pink and sparkly. So if you paint yours pink and sparkly, you can put yours in specific pools, but otherwise never hire.
Wild Hunt's kind of neat, and as a person who played for a long time the faction of Min-2s, I think we can agree that Hard to Wound gets contextually much more value when your opponent's beaters are all Min-2. And Min-2, that's like 6 attacks on Hard to Wound. So like he's a little bit tankier than maybe you guys are letting on, but he also can just die if your opponent has Ruthless stuff.
Yeah,
I think you see the Ruthless stuff less often than you would anticipate. But I don't know. He's an expensive model to kill, I think. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it does take a bit more effort than I think you guys are putting out for it. But I'm not going to make a case that he's any better than specific pools.
Sam?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I'd say specific pools, but like very specific pools and closer to never higher. Because like you guys are talking about how easy or hard he is to kill, but he's defense 4, willpower 4. There's a lot of stuff you can do to him short of killing him that makes him just like a paperweight. And then your opponent spent 10 stones on a dude whose primary like role in life is to block their own movement lanes. Like you just stone cannot hire this guy into a crew with Obey. If you hire him into a crew with Obey, you will instantly lose. Because your opponent is going to obey him and then take the action, the tactical action with a like 5+ of tomes, I think, in their hand. And
they
then
don't even need the tome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's built in. So yeah, they're just gonna take a tactical action and be like, okay, you can't move your 10-stone beater for the rest of the turn. Enjoy. So that's like a whole. And if people know about that, a lot of factions can hire a single obey out of keyword, even if they don't have it in keyword. That like, maybe does other stuff for their crew, which just incidentally also makes your 10-stone model never interact with the game state. So I think he's got specific uses, but usually those specific uses are like pulling him out in starter games so that your opponent will be like, wow, Malifaux is super cool. It's got these great looking models. And also they'll have an easier time beating you, so they'll feel good about the game. That's the sort of use case for the Rex. He's Worf. His job is to be the Worf of the game.
Yeah. I think that maybe there's a case for specific pools, but I'm very comfortable leaving him in never hire.
Yeah, I'll leave it up to you, Brandon.
Okay.
He's at least more playable than Aeslin, so you got to at least put him left of him.
Yeah, like again, it's
I'm putting in specific pools.
It's not just the obey. It's just like there are a ton of actions if you look through the game that like stun models and slow them,
stun,
and
stagger, slow,
stagger them, put them out
and
of position, and
any of that, and he's just crippled.
And it will hit him. They will hit him because he's 4/4.
Yeah. And like, I'll put him in specific pools with the caveat that I think that this is going to be the worst model that we, for the entire run of this series, put in the specific pools category. Okay.
Hell yeah, Killjoy's good.
We did it. Yeah, Killjoy, windmill slam, Malisaurus, windmill, bin.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to another never hire model. Autumn Knights. You never hire these models in Titania 1. Titania 2, obviously, they become much better models.
Titania 2, they're auto-include.
Yeah, it's the funny diametrically opposed. It's definitely auto-included in Titania 2, and you're never hiring these models in Titania 1. The big thing, mainly because they become stat 7/6 on defense when they're in Titania 2, as well as having their defense parry built in, puncture built in, and into thorns built in. They become really good models, and they also carry the upgrade really well for just keeping the aura out, because they're not easy models to kill, especially if your opponent mainly only targets their defense and now they just get punched back a lot. So yeah, Don't know what you're going to do with this or where you're going to show that in our tier list, but it's either auto include or never hire.
I'd say most pools, because you 100% of the time take them alongside Titania 2 and you 0% of the time don't. So you just, if you're hiring Titania 2, you are hiring Autumn Knights. Titania 2 is in most pools, QED, Autumn Knights in most pools.
Yeah, this is one of the nice ones where you have to listen to us talk to really understand where the hell these things
Yeah.
are.
I mean, yeah, I think that that's all valid. I do like the Autumn Knights. I mean, they're tanky dudes. They, you know, obviously we've talked about how insane they are in Titania 2 with the upgrade on them. Like I hire one in Titania 1. I don't know. They seem like okay. I don't think that I get great value out of them, but I really like the models. So maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't know. Yeah, like I don't really have anything else to add. Challenge is useful sometimes. I do like the challenge things and run away too if I've already put hand pressure on them and then just they're sad because they can't do anything with like a model that hasn't activated less. But I don't know. Landon?
Yeah. Challenge is a really good action. I don't think we went over that, but like challenge when you have parry, excellent. I have nothing else really to add beyond the fact that, you know, healing these guys for 2 and giving them shielded 1 for no TN, really attractive option in Titania 2 for your AP.
Yep.
Yeah.
I miss that in second edition, these guys were like randomly 3 different data sheets that were all kind of almost identical, which is
Oh,
weird.
dude, I know. No, they were not almost identical. They were very distinctly tiered.
Fair. I mean, like, yes, one was better than the others, but they were the text on them was very close.
I don't even think that's true. They all had different attacks.
No, they all had like the same attack, but like with different names, but in very slightly different.
Not even true.
I guess I'd have to pull out the book. I remember them
played
being
all
similar.
3 of these guys, and I know.
Fair enough. All right. The point is, you're correct. You play them with Titania 2. You probably don't play them with Titania 1. I just don't think that they're going to do 7 stones of work there. And that's it.
All right. Now onward to Bultungin. Man, these models suck. I hate this model. People, please stop hiring this model. I don't understand it. I understand Deadly Pursuit, really attractive. It's a minion for Titania 2, even though it's a minion that dies with a stern looking. Even if you bump it up to stat 6 defense. Mainly just because willpower attacks are very common anyways right now. But long story short, you probably can put it in specific pools. Deadly Pursuit is good enough where there's enough strategies at the moment where last minute moves really do matter for scoring a couple things. But as I was saying, they just die. I wouldn't hire them in any pool because I think there are better options than just losing 5 soul stones.
Like those are all good points, but I mean, Deadly Pursuit's very strong. They are hard to kill. They make good hidden martyrs.
I mean, so do Wicked Dolls.
I think they're pretty prime real estate for scheme runners in Neverborn, as far as like, especially in keyword.
I completely agree.
What schemes in this GG?
All
I
right.
guess. I mean,
Scheme
if
runner
we're
as a
talking other
loose-
GGs in general, sure. Eventually, they'll be good scheme runners.
Scheme runner is a loose term, right? But like something like wagon, someone has to push the damn wagon. These guys are good at it for 5 stones. Stuff like that.
I don't know. I feel like with hard to kill, that sort of pushes them up just enough that like you don't feel terrible hiring them the way you used to. Like they used to be like absolute garbage. Hard to kill gives them something. And I mean, this keyword is not, you know, spoiled for excellent minions, so you kind of take what you get. But that's maybe a little bit talking ahead of ourselves.
I just got to be convinced to pay the 2 extra stones instead of just having Wicked Dolls, who actually move wagons better because they can throw bonus throw.
Only if you have a model where you threw the wagon to, but sure.
Or just in, not where you threw it to, just a line of sight that you can get within 1 of it.
Yeah, but what you can only hire 3 Wicked Dolls, right? So your 4th Wicked Doll has to cost you 2 more points.
There you go. That's the edge case. You're right.
Yeah, it's a very
have
specific
a much harder
pool.
time doing something like grabbing that weird corner. What do you call it? The covert ops. With
Yeah,
corner
I mean,
covert ops.
Their
right?
movement 6, they have deadly pursuit, and in corner insane bullshit like corner covert ops with hard to kill, I think is fine. I think they're very edge case where you would take them, but
Like
the
you're going to
cases
throw
are
him
real.
out to that corner. He's going to paint the marker, and then he's going to paint the marker in his blood because he gets splatted. But you got your point. You don't fucking care.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think he's good at those things. So I agree with specific pools. Never hires. Terrible misevaluation of the model. I think.
Yeah, I think that's pretty sorted. So Rougarou.
Yeah.
Rougarou.
All right, I'll take the force move on that note. Rougarou, another model where you probably never hire it in Titania 1, and it becomes much better in Titania 2. Built-in puncture into thorns, as we've already talked about, is pretty amazing. It's even better when you are severe 6. That being said, I'm not the biggest fan of it still, mostly because it just dies. With only really having hard to wound and defense 4, admittedly 5 if it has the upgrade on him. But intimidating roar is just, a really good option to help unpack with, but not having a bonus action that's really relevant is kind of depressing. I'd put this into probably I don't even know if I put it into counterattack. Maybe if there's actually like a lot of good minions or enforcers, you want to kill, this is probably a pretty decent way to do it. The other argument, obviously, specific pools, just because maybe in kill pools it's better. I just don't really believe that's true. It's too frail if your opponent's also doing that method. So I'd probably say counterattack, where you want to move around the map and just, there are going to be like random minions you want to just pop off the map, especially hard to wound ones where you can just get focus and then puncture them and just splat like a necropunk or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think counterattack is probably where I'd put them. I mean, certainly in Titania 2, I think maybe they might even make most pools. They're probably not, but maybe as a one-off. But they they definitely are good anti-schemers, right? They're fast, they run around the board, they do stuff. They're also an acceptable way to go ahead and do the Bultungin nonsense where you in corner covert ops, you can run them up and go tag a thing. But like intimidating roar is very good. I don't know. I think this model is hireable. Initially, pre-Titania 2, I did not ever play them. But now that Titania 2's out, I think that they can be pretty strong. Yeah.
So you totally could play this model in Titania 1 before, I think. The thing that you hired these for before, and I think they're less good at that particular role now that you have alternatives in the faction, is that turn 1 you would just intimidating roar whatever beat stick you wanted twice, so that they got 12 inches close to the enemy. And then with Deadly Pursuit, they weren't really all that far behind for the next turn. And then you just kind of did whatever they needed to do in the back line with move 6 and, their Deadly Pursuits to try and score points. And I think they still do that pretty well if you're playing like Titania 2 and you're like, all right, here's my Emissary. I got to get that forward turn 1 so that he starts doing his thing. And then I look for my points elsewhere on the board once they're distracted with whatever threat. Maybe I pick off a scheme runner or something. These guys got a lot of heat at the start of the edition for being really unplayable, and I just always was kind of insulted by that because they looked like they have a reasonably valuable kit. So that's kind of like my thought on the play pattern of the Rougarou. It's kind of like that. I don't want to say it's a Kunoichi type model because it doesn't have tools for the job, right? But it's like it's doing a thing turn 1 to support your crew really well, and then it's going on to do those like mid-table points.
Yeah. Hear me out though. What if we gave them a utility belt, and then they could have tools for the job?
That might be good.
Yeah, I mean, so these guys, I find it a little interesting that they have 2 different triggers that both have the job of letting you cheat those severe 6s. I really like Flay. Flay is a cool trigger. I think that being able to just force through 6 damage is not quite as valuable as being able to force through 7 or 8 damage in terms of just what it kills. There's breakpoints there. And the reason I'm harping on the combat stuff is you guys have pretty much covered the non-combat stuff, and I also think that when you're spending 8 stones on this guy, you do want him to be able to mix it up, because that is too many stones in this crew to pay for a model that can't kill stuff. In this crew, at least. I will also say that there's a use case for them that's also a use case for the Malisaurus, which we skipped, but that I think is worth mentioning is that hiring Marcus 1 as a second master and larding mutations on them, which is funny, if not actually great.
Yeah, I mean, now that the boar's out, Boar, Rougarou, Malisaurus, Marcus as a second master, that's probably all 50 points, but let's see what happens. Seems cool. I might try that someday.
I've played into it. It wasn't great.
It's not great, but it's fun. And like, I mean, if you're committing to that, you're committing to the fun path, and you will, in fact, have fun if you do that.
That's fair.
All right. On to Waldgeist, my next hot take. I hate these models. I would never hire them. I think they have more use cases than Bultungin, though, so probably specific pools. Because at least they have ambush, unlike Bultungin. So again, just a better way of pushing wagons. And that's pretty much actually what it comes down to. In Titania 2, they push wagons and carry, and they upgrade as an aura. But they, unlike Autumn Knights, die a lot quicker. They only have armor. They become stat 6/6, which I guess is cool, but they just die. They have 6 wounds armor, and they're normally 5/5s. And since you're probably not giving them the upgrades first, that's where they'll be, and that's where they'll die.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really like Waldgeists. I think they're cool. Are they good? Probably not. Do they? But like, I think that they have room at either. They're definitely very strong at wagons because like you get to ambush for free if you're in the wagon. So like they're any model with ambush really should be fine with that. There's the sort of niche tangling roots nonsense where if on very specific boards, when your opponent tows like a larger-ish forest, walking into the edge of the forest and heaving them like 12 inches away from where they are is like a cute trick that you can do sometimes. So like, because if they're in severe terrain, their melee attack can hit anything that's also in that piece of severe terrain. And I have done that exactly one time ever. And it was at Nova, actually. I think I was playing John Ghoulborn, maybe. I don't remember.
Gross.
But yeah, it was fine. I think it's cool and like doable, but like don't throw them into melee, and they're like not particularly survivable. Don't put the upgrade on them; it's not worth it. They have penetrating stench.
All right, so we got penetrating stench, so we just have to take 3 of them, stun a guy, and then still not have them discard enough resources to execute them, but it'll be funny when they have to pitch 3 cards.
Yeah.
You actually can stun on a stick in Titania 2.
Exactly.
I don't know. Do you have an actual thought on these guys?
No, that was actually the closest to a real thought I had on these guys. I think we've covered most of the ground. I'm like pretty darn close into putting them never higher. I think you have better things to push wagons. I'd actually put them there if it were up to me.
I mean, we have 4 things in specific pools, each of which has at least a toe and never higher.
Yeah,
Like,
my problem is I like them more than
This one I
Bultungin.
think is like the lead or the worst of the never higher or specific pool never higher like clutches we have there. I like Bultungin more.
Kind of interesting that it's like this faction has a lot of dudes who are very close to being unplayable.
I love that for us.
We're just we're being charitable here, but like some of these guys are poop. And Waldgeists are poop. They're poop. The Planted Roots is a really strong ability, and I would much rather see it on a model that matters, like the Mysterious Emissary, than on a model that doesn't matter, like the Waldgeist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, to be fair, they do have planted roots, so they're like they can't be pushed off of the markers, which is potentially relevant in GG3. But they don't need to be pushed off when you just kill them in a single hit. So
usually it'll take 2.
Okay, 1 activation.
I don't know. There's a lot of ways to hit severe 7 on most of the like aggressive crews in the game, I think. But yeah, it's for some crews it's too.
Yeah, it's not too rare right now, and that's part of the problem. Is God, these guys
their
just die.
Their survivability has been kind of power crept by how dangerous the game is these days.
Yeah.
I'll make the bold statement with my recorded games. I've never lost to a Neverborn player hiring these models. They're trash. You're just wasting soul stones.
I mean, you could have like, it's a Neverborn player. I don't know.
Can't say that. We're gonna have to edit that out.
Yeah, that's
bullying.
fine. Yeah, that's fine. I'll cut it out. If it's not bullying, if I'm self-bullying.
We'll get
okay?
we'll get mad yelled at for that one.
We're definitely cutting all this stuff out.
I think
Yeah.
we should.
If we're cutting it out, then I'll just go on the record and say that if I see someone who plays Neverborn, I just really assume that they're stupid and have bad.
If they're playing Pandora, they're fine. Pandora is really strong right now. Honestly, Titania 1, I think, can win tournaments. You
No.
just don't play Fae KEYWORD.
No, you just. I mean, a much more important part of that strategy is don't play good players.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or
Only
like
play Neverborn.
only-
do not
only
their
they're
best.
Neverborn.
I don't know. If I was playing Neverborn, I'd play
In
Titania.
general, Sam, I do try not to play my ass, but it's because I
Yeah,
have
I
to
think
play
your only options is
installed
Titania
everywhere.
and Pandora, right?
Yeah, I know. What? No.
Oh,
No.
Dreamer, I guess, is a model
can't-
that
No,
some people can play.
no.
Euripides, man.
Euripides
Oh,
2,
oh god, I've never actually
Dreamer
liked
a little
Euripides.
bit.
All
I
right,
don't
let's
think Titania has
bring it
legs.
in. I regret powering this
Okay.
derail.
Okay, so that pretty much concludes all of our Neverborn, all of our Fae keyword models. But we have some out of keyword hires and personals and stuff to talk about. So, what's the first one? Haku?
Yeah, our first one is Hinamatsu, which is a really great model for everything. I don't know. If you really wanted, you could probably just put this in most pools. I'm going to put it in the meme counter tech one right in front of the board for sure. Mostly just because it gets countered. So it's counter tech of people not countering you. And that's basically just people with armor and shielded and a lot of that because you're just stuck taking a bunch of actions and pinging for one, which doesn't really feel good. But having lure in this keyword specifically is pretty nice. Downside, you don't ignore any of the concealing. So have fun using soul stones to get around concealing, or a focus. But you're gonna have to do that once to get your good lure off. But once you're in the fight, though, you're fine. It doesn't matter how often do you actually lure. More than once in a game with this model, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, Hinamatsu has a lot. I feel like Hinamatsu is more countered tech than counter tech. But yeah, I mean, she has a lot of strengths, but it's also very easy to just get wrecked if they have those. If they have her opposite, right? But if they don't, like, she's a really strong beater. She's something that the crew needs because we don't really have any good things that can just put out like a shit ton of min 2s, right? Everything else is like big min 3s, but then I die immediately after my first activation, or nope, that's it. But no, I like Hinamatsu. Hinamatsu does some good stuff, and like, yeah, I think the lure is potentially fine because generally I'm putting my underbrush markers on my opponent's half of the board or farther up. So when I'm luring with her, if I'm luring things towards me, that's fine. But if I'm messing around with like the center line to try and get people off markers, there are situations where I probably wouldn't hit the underbrush markers. Maybe. I hope.
I'm actually quite down on Hinamatsu in this particular keyword. I think the more keyword you end up playing, the worse Hinamatsu gets. And so, like, if you're playing Titania 1 and then all the Neverborn All-Stars, she's, playable. But I think contextually she's worse in Titania than she is anywhere else in the entire faction. So I think she gets overhired in this keyword. I'm comfortable saying that.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not wrong. It's just that it's a strong Neverborn model, which is like few and far between. So,
oh, that's entirely fair. I mean, it's because it's an honorary Thunders model, so that's why it gets a little bit of extra buff. But like, honestly, a lot of the times where I want a lot of small pings, I feel like that's almost where I'd want Killjoy. But I'll be shouted down off that.
I'm kind of sick of seeing Hinamatsu. It's like, I don't know, this is going to be difficult to explain, but I guess, like, for people who played Magic, I remember there was this very, very funny column that was on Channel Fireball a few years back where somebody had submitted this to like a deck doctor type column, a very funny like legacy deck that was basically cat tribal. And the guy doing the column was like, it's a really cool cat you should include? Leonin Arbiter. And then, like, you have this really cool piece of, like, cat equipment, but you should maybe try making it an Umezawa's Jite instead. And once you've got the Jite, you should get these Stoneforge Mystics to help make it. And basically, piece by piece, turn to this dude's deck into just mono white Death and Taxes, kind of as a bit. But, like, I'm sick of seeing Hinamatsu, basically. Every single Neverborn crew at least like sometimes hires Hinamatsu, and it's very boring.
Yeah,
She's fine.
she's just in a solid spot. It also sometimes is nice to hire and a surprise hire her because, as we said, she does good counters. So if you don't think she's coming,
Surprise. Oh boy, I'm playing Neverborn. Will I see Hinamatsu?
I think it's more surprising Titania for what you listed. I think the other versatiles we're going to talk about synergize better with her Titania than Hinamatsu. So you shouldn't see her as often. But I guess you're right. She is currently overhired, so it works worse.
Yeah, I mean, not that I ever
Which
really
is
want to
funny.
make a. I don't ever really want to make a case for like if your opponent's bad, this model's better. But like, I guess there maybe some people aren't used to leverage, and like in a tournament game, you want to score your schemes early because if you're not getting to finish, like that's possibly a concern. Maybe leverage is a little bit stronger, and like pass tokens are real good. And I think this is the only way that this crew can get pass tokens outside of having your whole crew die.
I don't want to say it's they're bad. I was trying to say like it's a gamble. You're basically betting that they're
Yeah.
not gonna expect you to hire Hina when you hire Hina is the
So-
best time to hire her.
Yeah. So the key play is just tell your opponent you're new to the game because you obviously are because you're playing Neverborn, and then they'll expect that you're not going to finish, and so then you take Hinamatsu, and then they have to declare their schemes early, so you get pass tokens. We did it.
All right. Onwards to Bowman, I think. Bowman is an easy counter tech for me as well. She's really good for healing. She could probably be hired more than I'm giving her credit for, although Titania 2 probably has enough healing of herself. But it's more important to have the condition removal is what you're really looking for in the bottle of painkillers. Other than that, her attacks are again kind of screwed by concealing terrain, so she's pretty depressing for that. But her normal attack is her normal attack. I don't know. There's not much to say. She removes conditions.
Yeah, I mean, the condition removal is entirely the reason that you hire Serena Bowman. She's like the only good source of condition removal in the game. It is worth noting, like Demise Eternal, it makes her good, good in some circumstances. For all the reasons we talked about earlier with the Killjoy stuff. She is an enforcer, so her twist reality isn't stonable, but like twist reality can put up numbers if you really need it to. You just have to clear a path from the markers because she does not ignore them, and she cannot stone. So you're either going to be burning focus that you put on her somehow or whatever. But like, if the crew doesn't have a whole lot of ignore armor outside of stoning for the tome on Hinamatsu, so like twist reality might be good there. I don't know.
Maybe I just don't play enough Neverborn to appreciate this model, but after it's been nerfed, I don't really see a huge reason to play this, especially if you're playing Titania, where if you see that conditional removal, you have the foresight to know you need it. Titania 2 just has it on a really efficient action, where you remove the condition, heal for 2, and shield for no TN from a reasonable distance away on the table, as opposed to 3 inches on your model that's not unimpeded in your crew, where you're dropping a bunch of severe terrain. So like, I'm not particularly sold. I can see counter tech just because maybe you really wanted to play Titania 1 and somehow you're going to be in range for Bottle of Painkillers, but I don't know. I don't see it.
I mean, that is just it, right? It's just
Yeah.
for Titania 1.
Oh yeah,
not
I mean,
for 2.
it's just for Titania 1. You would never take her in Titania 2 because Cleanse by the Wood is just better.
Right, but I'm just saying, in the situation where you'd want her, wouldn't you just play Titania 2?
No,
not
I think if the
necessarily.
pool is better for killing. I mean, the heal itself is pretty fine. And I think if they're taking time to kill Bowman over
Yeah.
the beater it's next to, it's probably not great.
And the only benefit is that Titania's action only heals Fae. So like if you are trying to end condition and or heal and out a keyword higher, then
You can still end the condition on the out of keyword higher, though. But yeah, I hear
yeah, that's true. But you also get the heal with Serena, so
Yeah, I feel like the heal is actually probably pretty reasonable, just because this is kind of a, by Neverborn standards, a pretty tanky keyword. So you
good caveat.
Yeah, I'm trying to do my best with the tools I'm given, but like you basically get a lot more value if you're restoring an armored, hard to wound, def 7 wound on an Autumn Knight than if you were restoring like hard to wound, def 5 nothing wound on a Bultungin, or not even hard to wound, just like a def 5 wound on a Bultungin. So I think there's something to be said there for the fact that there's some tanky stuff to heal. But again, just the fact that Serena needs to keep up with your army and is going to have a hard time doing that is a consideration.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, on to Candy, the other versatile quote-unquote model you see in most Neverborn lists. I think this is amazing in Titania 1 because it has Burnout. That's it. You probably don't hire this in Titania 2, but Titania 1, it has Burnout. Burnout's really good. The rest of the stuff it does is also fine. Like, it'll just be healing probably mid-game / trying to glimpse somebody. Or just have the aura up in a really annoying spot. Like, this model is just super, super annoying. And it more importantly allows you to turn 1 alpha, which I think is a pretty good build for Titania 1 right now. So figure out where you want to put that between most pools and never hire, because again, it's I don't think you probably ever take this to Titania 2. It's just not worth it.
Specific pools?
Yeah, specifically when you want to alpha people with Titania 1, sure.
Yeah. Wait.
I don't know.
So I'm gonna cut this out, but why? How does this help you do this?
You get fast.
Fast?
Oh, fast. Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry. You said fast already. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, so like Candy's good, right? There's no support for any of her cool stuff, but like, maybe you yeet her in and do some stun crap after you fast somebody on turn 1.
Fast 2 people.
Fast 2 people, but then she can't move. So I don't know, maybe.
Continue fasting.
Continue fasting. Yeah, all right. I mean, fast is good. I would pay 9 stones for fasting my whole crew. A bunch.
So I think you can actually take this in Titania 2 as well and not feel all that bad. You have a reasonable amount of enemy movement effects to try and put enemies in the Corrupted Innocence bubble if you really want. The Emissary still likes fast regardless of which Titania you're playing. And, you only need so many minions for Titania 2 to be, still good. And I don't know, you still put stun out so you get some value off of, the misery.
Yeah.
So I think most of her kit still gets used when you're taking her out of keyword here. So I think, specific pools is still fine. I don't think most pools are always higher, but I think she probably has more legs than you guys might be letting on.
I mean, my problem in Titania 2, don't get me wrong, I'm addicted to fast. It's a more so just like the synergy with Fae is a lot better. It's just value obviously goes down because you're not alphaing in 2, and that's the main purpose, I feel like.
You still don't mind alphaing with your Emissary, I don't think.
Yeah.
Sam?
Sorry, I was muted again. Yeah, Candy's fine. I think that I do like the fact that this crew has some of the tools to just bog people down in a misery bubble with the terrain. Like if you're if you're playing Candy, you want to have your opponent stuck near Candy and not really able to meaningfully escape out of that bubble and go do things away from her. And I think this crew that has a significant amount of displacement on enemy models and creates severe terrain is good at leveraging that. So, and you do have some stunned as well, so you can get some use out of misery. But in general, I just think Candy is good here for the same reason she's good everywhere else, and there's just some kind of cute Titania unique tricks you can do with her. So,
yeah, the only thing I'll ask is, can we just move her all the way left on specific pools? I know we're not paying too much attention to the left and right on the specific line, but I think it matters a little.
Oh, she's
bit.
a mile better than everyone else we've gotten.
Exactly because of that, especially because we have the border between most of those models we view as pretty close to never higher models that I don't even want to necessarily see her near them.
Yeah,
Sure.
Candy, keep walking, honey. Don't look at them.
The one thing I do want to point out before we move on is that Candy can do more than just one fast. She can do 3 fasts on your crew. It's not I fasted 1 model, right? It's 3.
That is true. In 2, you're actually willing to stun yourself to get fast because you can condition removal. So I guess it's not the worst. Or if you're taking a couple models, you don't even care if some of the models don't necessarily even care if they're stunned because they don't have a bonus action we're talking about.
Right, or it's turn 1 where they're mostly just going to be walk focusing anyways, and you don't really mind being stunned for that.
Yeah, now we're just talking about either a lot of soul stones or you're really lucky with crows.
Sure.
All right, on to Widow Weaver.
Woo.
I don't know why this is here. I don't know why people play this model. Don't play it. I'll put it in. I'll just confidently say never hire in Bolt Titanias. I don't see it.
Well, let me just say, I think that this is a trap, and you should not do this. But one of the things that you can do with Widow Weaver, should you be so inclined, is make this Puppet Factory. And it's not good in Titania. I don't know why you would do this, but people like Widow Weaver for some reason out of Keyword in Neverborn. And don't get me wrong, I love her out of Keyword in exclusively Zoraida and exclusively Zoraida 1. But if you were so inclined, what you could do is with this henchman, you know, take your careful assembly with a stone for a mask to make a relatively good puppet minion on turn 1 after you hire a Wicked Doll and then kill it. Which seems bad. Like, you should not do this, but like, you can. So there's that. I mean, other than that, like, Terrorize is good for all the reasons we talked about, but bad for all the reasons that we talked about, because, like, yeah, you can push things and that's very good in GG3, but like, you can't get over the underbrush markers without, you know, pitching a Soulstone. So I don't know. You could hire her for the Puppet Factory if you really want to be like all about the aesthetic, and if you're playing Neverborn, you are all about the aesthetic because that's the only thing this faction has. We did it.
Yeah, don't hire this model.
So here's the reason why it's on the list, guys. Firstly, it's hard to find models that place in Neverborn for a bonus or just like Seize Prey's good, right? This is why people usually tend to start their idea of I want a Widow Weaver. It's they want to use Seize Prey to try and get value out of moving around the map, right? So you might think I've only got Create Web to make my markers. Technically, you also have Bultungin if you decide you want to hire them.
We did
But
it.
mostly it's going to be out of Create Web, right? But the other thing that it does is you have Into the Dream Web on your melee attack. It's a henchman, so you get the soul stones to get that trigger off. You get a lot of displacement, which can put people into your underbrushes. Unlike the rest of your stuff, you're just making the thing and then immediately putting them next to the underbrush. I don't know, for a bonus. And Terrorize, it just has good contextual value in this particular GG. In other GGs, it was mostly something you would take for like symbols. So I wanted to include it mostly as an honorary tick for other gaining grounds if you're going to be playing those. I agree that she's not the greatest in GG3.
I'll also just point out that web markers are severe terrain, and most of your models don't ignore severe terrain. They ignore underbrush markers.
True, but you know what? It's also drop, and you can drop it underneath enemies for Titania, who only cares about whether it's severe terrain, not whether or not it's underbrush.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
I want to address this. I am sensitive to the Widow Weaver. But now this model sucks ass. It's terrible. Don't ever take this in. Like, this is such a goofy model, and like when it has Nightmare Synergy, it's like marginally acceptable, and you don't have Nightmare Synergy in this keyword. The Widow Weaver wandered in here. Put her down and never hire. Kick her.
All right, fine.
Take her code.
So I will put her never hire. But the Puppet Factory is don't never ever hire her ever. But in this keyword, no, I just wouldn't. Like, if you're not in Dreamer or Zoraida, there's no reason to hire this model.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. On to Klaus Norwood. Also just slam it and never hire. Is there like some meme I'm missing about why this is here, or just because it cycles a card and that's cool? Also, I guess negging your opponent a card tilts them. So maybe you bring it just because your opponent's going to get hard tilted. But other than that, not ignoring concealing on this guy is really annoying. And yeah, I'm not a big fan.
So
I'm very surprised by that take, actually.
So once upon a time, you used to be able to hire Klaus Norwood and the Widow Weaver.
Yeah, that was broken. We're not there anymore.
Nonsense. But they have since fixed that by reforming the like targeting requirement and splitting the targeting requirements into two different types of requirements. That pocket full of sharp wit, pocket full of personalities, no longer gets around. So I don't know. Like, Klaus seems cool, I guess. I've literally never played this model. I have no idea what we're talking about. Landon?
Information exchange lets you get 13s. It's discount tools for the job. This is useful when you're trying to alpha people. This is really not that hard to piece together, guys.
I know it's not hard to piece together. I just, good lord, I don't want discount tools for the job that takes an action and the rest of the model does nothing.
The rest of the model
Oh.
doesn't do nothing, as you have some staggered synergy with all your attacks that target movement. And then you also just exist and get rid of a card from your opponent. He's kind of difficult to take down if you're just playing for mid-table points with his activations. And I don't know. I was impressed with this guy when I played him in Lucius too. I think he's perfectly fine.
You mean you liked playing him in the faction or in the crew that shares his keyword and his keyword synergies?
It had absolutely nothing to do with his keyword synergies in that keyword. Information exchange just works.
All right. Yeah, my take is don't hire this incel.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's actually legitimately worse tool for the job, it's like actually super matters. Like sometimes you pay 8 soul stones and you can't even draw with
It's not just
13.
worse tools for the job because it gets any card in your discard, not always just the top one.
At the cost of an action on an 8-point henchman that you have to hire.
And you need the same suit. I mean, so you're right. It's a side graded tool for the job, I guess. I guess I'll give it side graded.
I just don't think this crew is in the list of crews that like having a single specific 13 is huge for them.
I mean, actually, to be fair, it turns any mask into into the being able to mold for the whatever you're doing. So maybe.
Yeah, but the counterpoint, as Sam pointed out, like alphas where like A13 really matters, or normally when that 13 like is like super huge. Hoffman laser is like a classic example of that, where you need it to go off, or like one of Sonya's like first shots, or absolutely needing a severe. I think
cheating initiative.
Okay, but like the thing with this one is this crew is that like if I'm being serious here, like both Titanias have ways of forcing through injured with pretty reliable attacks. That once you've stacked a couple of injured on the thing you're trying to alpha down, like you don't need 13s. You don't. The whole point of having a crew that can apply injured and spend AP doing it is that it makes you it makes you able to do powerful attacks that are agnostic to what your hand looks like. So
I can be talked into this only if I actually have the soul stones free for it. I legitimately can see where if you're building I mean, Lan is right. Having a side grade tool for the job obviously is always going to be decent in an alpha crew because you get most of your value by just disrupting turn 1. Question is I don't think you have the soul stones for it in an alpha crew, right? Am I delusional? I didn't used to have it in mine.
You don't. There's not a lot to go around. I mean, I will say, like, yeah, it's the closest thing that the entire faction has it for, in terms of tools for the job, but.
All right. I guess we're going to say specific pools on this guy because I can't convince you to put him in never hire.
Yeah, I'd be fine in specific pools, I guess. I can get, 8 soul stones for for them to lose a card and for you to have
probably
tools for the job is interesting.
So Landon, you're in specific pools. Longton, you're on the fence. Sam, you're in never hire, and I'm in never hire.
Yeah.
So I'm putting it in never hire. Asterisk. That's what the asterisk is for.
Yeah, like listen, I get where Landon's coming from on this. I just don't think that I don't think you're gonna win games where you spend 8 stones on this guy to probably draw a severe. Then I don't think you're gonna win those games rather just spending those 8 stones on something that matters.
That's almost 3 Wicked Dolls.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, more importantly, it's also almost an emissary. So, I mean, emissary is auto include. I don't think you ever run Titania list without the emissary.
Yeah.
You do if you're stupid.
It makes hazardous terrain, which is really good when you're moving people inside hazardous terrain and pinging them for damage with your Into the Thorns. And it's also just a cracked model by itself, ignoring anything else it does. Having more severe terrain out means you're, making them at negatives to resist his action that targets movement. Jesus Christ, this model is just, it's so good. And its bonus action is super annoying to have to deal with. It doesn't come up that often, but, it's one of those things where it's definitely nice to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think this model's great. I think that every Neverborn player probably needs to have a copy of this model. And it's like one of the few versatiles that is true for. And in GG3, having a pretty tanky, 10 health model with planted roots is just really, really strong, in the meta of you have to have models in places and not have them not be in those places and not dead. This does that, and also it is good. Like, you probably want to hire this in most games. That's what I got.
I mean,
I did the Emissary is just that good. Every piece of tech that you can take with the Emissary is just, here in this keyword. It's good.
Mhm.
It's almost like he was designed for it or something.
Wow.
yeah, I mean, Weird is getting no points here for subtlety. They put the giant tree man in the faction, and then they built a crew of like tree worshipping people. You're dumb if you don't hire the mysterious emissary in this crew. It's like designed for that. Why would you not? Like, what is the argument against it at this point? Is where I'm at. You need an argument against it, and it needs to be a good one. And I just don't think that argument exists.
He's min
Yeah.
2, and if you don't draw high tomes, you don't get to use spread it around, so you don't get to do blasts. And if you aren't doing blasts, you don't get hungry landmarkers, and he's not good. So
But you
know if
don't
draw
need high tomes.
You do.
You don't. You need any tome because your opponent's in a neg flip to resist.
Or you just hit mods, get good.
Yeah, like attacks where you can put your opponent in a neg flip to resist are super rare and super strong. And when one of the big advantages to having them is that they don't pressure your hand because you can just hit. And if you really need specific suits, you can cheat crappy cards.
Getting to the negative, though, either requires setup outside of his own activation, or once again, the high tome.
Or you just focus hit
Sure.
a minion.
Sure. And
Yeah.
it also just requires you to do stuff that the crew's already doing, which is why he's so good. Anyway, we're not really arguing. He's an auto take. You never
No.
wouldn't take the model.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I wish that Weird would. Sure. I think that Weird would do well to just make the tree golem be makeable by combining 3 tree gaming, right? That probably needs to be a thing we can do.
Changelings, tree gammon.
Yeah.
Look, I picked that up, okay? I know you love Klaus. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for insulting him, but he is a weird little incel and I don't want to hire him.
All right. On that note, the Kurgan is our next model. A model you probably don't hire in Swamp Things, but actually has pretty decent play, I think. And specifically Titania 1, Titania 2 is probably fine. Long story short, though, it's going to come down to the fact that its shifting earth ability is really great, and avalanche is also really good. So it's like, how do I alpha in Titania 1? It's like, well, this guy just throws a model halfway up the board, and you could probably actually just throw Titania if you want, or maybe even get the Emissary and Titania both midway up the board in like decent spots by itself. The fact that Avalanche doesn't have to go directly away makes it really, useful in moving your models around, unlike Toss. And the only big downside, specifically for Titania 2, is that when you activate Mudslide, Titania 2 doesn't have a way around concealing like Titania 1 just has on her attack. So she actually does kind of get owned by concealing, which is funny. Yeah, that being said, I honestly, I'd probably play this now in most of the alpha crews I'm making in Titania 1. It's a really good way of spending AP to get your other models up the board. And then when in doubt, he's just a big walking severe terrain, and he gets to go forward with his wacky whack tangling roots. So that's going to be pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, that seems reasonable. Go for it. The Kurgan does stuff for sure. My only drawback is for 9 stones, like, you probably have some other stuff you gotta hire. So you're gonna maybe struggle to find it, but he definitely lets you push things around. He lets you place with Shifting Earth. He saves you an AP with Titania on the first turn, probably, in almost all cases. He probably saves you an AP on the Emissary or whatever other beater you're taking. The Kurgan, I think, is just generally a very good model, and I think in Neverborn, we have those in not spades.
Clubs.
Yeah, wild. And yeah, no, and I mean he synergizes reasonably well, and he has a lot of good movement abilities. He's not particularly hard to kill if your opponent can ignore the armor too. But yeah, and if he he gets to heal things, and with Titania's ability that might be relevant. You might use his Chronicle ability occasionally. Yeah, I think he's fine.
So where are you putting it?
Oh, so where are we putting him? Are we putting him in most pools?
I'd probably
Most
put him most
pools
pools.
is where I'm
Titania
gonna
1.
drop him.
Titania 2 is probably more like counter tech or specific pools, but it's still fine. So yeah, I just
Right. Yeah,
land him in most pools.
I'll put him in most pools. I mean, I think it not necessarily most pools from the sense that you will be hiring him in most pools, but I think that he is good in most pools.
Yeah, you have to decide that this is what you want your crew to do.
Yeah.
And if that's Waldgeist's older brother.
Yeah,
yeah, and as people know, I'm addicted to alphing. So for me, that's always in Titania 1.
I mean, that's what Titania 1 does best, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think any of us are denying that. So you guys keep saying, oh, I don't know if you'll find the points for this, or you have all these other things to hire. I don't know what you're gonna cut to find room for this. This guy is clearly one of the things I think in Titania 1 you're gonna want, and one of those things that you're not having to make room for, along with the Emissary. Not like auto include maybe, but I think most pools is very comfortably where it is. Because let's look at the models we have on the tier list already, right? We have one that we can agree you hire pretty much every game for Titania 1 of the Mysterious Emissary, and then pretty much everything else we've said is like trash.
Candy.
Yeah, but we even put her in specific pools, right?
Not for Titania 1, in my opinion, though. Like, I mean, that's part of, I guess, our problem of how we're having it listed with the two different masters. But largely, I mean, if I want to be realistic, don't get me wrong, this isn't my argument against Kurgan. This is my argument against Klaus again, which is hilarious. But my argument is basically it's going to be Mysterious, Emissary, Candy, and Kurgan, and then you're left with like 11 Soul Stones, and I'm not investing 8 in Klaus. But I mean, I would invest the 9 in Kurgan over him. So that's why I have the Kurgan in most pools, and why it would probably stay there. It'd probably almost be auto include for me in Titania 1.
Yeah, I love the Kurgan. I've been playing a lot of Yedza 2 lately, and god, this model's so good. I do feel like with Titania 1, sort of something to not sleep on is that Cruel Disappointment synergizes really well with having armor. Because if your opponent doesn't have armor piercing, then their way of busting through armor is just slapping you with like these really big, heavy severes and not having to eat the armor that much. But if you're in Cruel Disappointment armor with armor, you're going to be taking 1 or 2 damage at a time. Like if you take damage, it makes him really hard to remove.
Yeah, and I guess mostly I just didn't want to hear you guys say again, like, well, I don't know if you're going to find the points for Kurgan. Like, Kurgan
no, the Kurgan's great. I would never not hire the Kurgan if I could.
Yeah, so that's really where I wanted to land with this model. As the only piece of counter tech that like out of keyword stuff I've suggested you guys have not viciously trash talked.
We love the Kurgan. We love the Kurgan, don't we, folks?
I had to sell you on it.
You did not sell us on the Kurgan. That thing is dope.
No, he's fine.
I would need to be sold on it for Titania too. I don't really see it there, but Titania 1 it serves a clear and obvious purpose. Plus, honestly, just being like one of the only models in the game with a 3-inch reach is kind of cracked.
Sweet model.
Wild.
Anyways.
So, Mr. Ryder.
Mr. Ryder. I as a rider enthusiast, and this being the coolest rider besides Dead, obviously slammed this into auto include, which it probably is for Titania 1. Partially because it's obviously riders are really good with alphas, but also Ride With Me, very good for the crew in general. And Malifaux Revolt is amazing with Titania. So just having enemy models treat that terrain as Aura 6 around him as hazardous terrain really allows you to be like, turn 1, I'll literally just ride with me, my friendly model, focus to get ready to go into the scrap. And then turn 2, I'm cheating a mask, having this terrain, charging you, first activation. And now every time, then with my turn with Titania, moving you around and pinging you is just monstrous, especially if Emissary got some good hits off turn 1. Like, oh boy, you could have double hazardous terrain, pings out the wazoo. The easier way of getting that than Killjoy upgrade.
Yeah, I mean the Malifaux. I mean the Neverborn Rider is very strong. He does a lot of good things. Malifaux's Revolt is strong in a bunch of different circumstances. Great Sword's a very good action, especially like later on in the game. Moonlit Charge, Moonlit Charge is amazing. It's such a good action. I don't know if you're ever going to afford it if you're going to in Titania, because I think what you want to be doing is Malifaux's Revolt. But if you get into the position where you're doing Moonlit Charge, like it is possible to kill an absurd number of models in a single activation with it. Like, you know, I think it's very, very, very good. Plus Ride With Me helps you reestablish the Alpha Strike. It lets you position things. I think Hooded Rider's bomb.
Yeah, I only struggle to put him in auto-include because I think he's more of a most pools type model, because sometimes you need a model or a couple of smaller models to just like score strats or whatever, and so you can't afford to just play a 6 model list.
Oh, look how the tables have turned, Mr. Landon.
And so I think of the like 6 model list you play to try and alpha people, I think he's the first one to come out if you need to replace like 2 models for point scores.
I don't know where you're getting a 6 model list currently with him. In
You
my
said
opinion,
Hooded Rider, Kurgan, Emissary Candy, and
then you have
that-
11
those are
soul
6 models.
stones.
Well, you
Bam.
need your ancient packs now.
Well, Wicked Doll and an ancient bag.
No, you get 3 Wicked Dolls and you start with 2 Soul Stones. We did it. 8 models.
I mean, I'm perfectly fine with 2 Wicked Dolls and only 1 ancient pack. I don't know if you really need.
No, that's actually
all-
that's
all
9
three.
models.
I think
That's
you
9
need
models,
a decent cache to try and have Titania not just die to damage being poured in, but that might just be a difference
maybe.
of opinion.
So 2 Wicked Dolls, 5 Soul Stones. We did
But then
it.
you have no ancient packs.
Okay.
I don't know the current pools you're talking about where you need more than 7 models, but
6 models, more than 6 models.
it's going to be 7 models because I think you easily fit 1 Wicked Doll and 2 ancient packs,
Landon,
Maybe that's fair.
and you just have 4 Soul Stones.
Well, what models are you
4
putting
Soul
the
Stone
ancient
feels
packs
light
on?
to me,
Because
though.
Wicked Doll is the
Haku's
only
just
one that lets
prancing
you
around
draw
being
it.
like, ooh, look at me. I'm Landon. I need 7 models. Maybe I'll take 8 models. I can't win the game with just 6.
Wild.
I
Can't win
do
every game
think
with
6
6.
is pretty. I think 6 is super bold.
I
I
mean,
would rather have 4 Soul Stones most of the time, but if you don't need Wicked Doll, you don't need Wicked Doll, and then bam, 6. You really just go ham on it.
Yeah, so I mean, the Rider's another model that I'm kind of just sick of seeing everywhere, but I'm gonna not be, like, first of all, I'm not gonna begrudge Neverborn players for playing their good models, and second of all, this is the keyword that probably does the most for it. Maybe does the most for it. Now I'm questioning. I think there's
The
others.
Seeker Y Hood Pandora does the most for Pandora.
yeah,
it's
Like
good.
hands
Pandora
down,
is
it's
amazing.
super cracked in Pandora.
I was thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, you just give it fast. That's fine. Okay, so yes, it's not the most, but this keyword does a lot for it, and it does a lot for this keyword. There's a lot of 2-way synergies here, so yeah, I don't begrudge anyone playing the Mysterious in this. Like, he is a lot, but I think that if you're taking him, I feel a little better about not taking the Kurgan because you got Ride With Me. Although I still love the Kurgan and think it's good for a lot of reasons besides the displace. But yeah, I
Ride
don't
With Me the M, which
I don't
is
know about-
arguably the
yeah.
model you want to alpha with.
yeah.
Right.
I don't
which
know
is,
about-
again why he's like, if I want to cut any model from the 6 model list.
Yeah,
I
I
think he's
would
the first
I
one
would
out.
say most pools, because the whole point of this is that the auto include is models that you absolutely auto include, and most pools is just models that you're almost always going to take. And the Mysterious Emissary is something you're almost always going to take, but there are situations where you won't take it. And
Yeah,
so
I
I'd say most.
I think
No,
that's-
there's not.
No, I think
you
that was
said
wrong.
that wrong.
He
There
did
is
that
never a scenario where
not
you
Mysterious.
don't take Mysterious Emissary.
thinking
There
Hooded-
are
no, no,
scenarios
I was saying
you
Hooded
could
meant Hooded Rider.
theoretically not take
Meant
them.
Hooded Rider. That's the one we were talking about right now. I
Yep.
misspoke. Clearly, I meant the Hooded Rider because that's the one we're talking about. Mysterious Emissary, you never, ever, 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 ever don't take.
Correct.
I made that one clear. But yes, I was talking about the Hooded Rider because that's the model we're discussing. It's
Yeah.
not my fault that everything in the Neverborn faction is like hooded and mysterious and like weird and secretive.
Yeah, I mean that's
God,
probably the
Sam.
correct take, especially because Titania 2 is definitely not an auto include, so I do feel a little bit worse about having it in auto include because it's a little misleading. But realistically, it's as close to an auto include as you could possibly be. To the
Yeah, well,
point
just
where
like all the
just
specific-
slam the hooded all the way left on the most pools line.
Sure. Just like all the dudes
No,
in specific
above the
pools have one
masters.
foot and never have.
Yeah. Make it actually keep it right at Titania 1, just so we know it's in between the two. That's actually perfect.
I hate this.
I think it's fine.
I appreciate it.
Realistically, given that like we're starting from the position that you can hire either Titania into most pools, assuming you're going to see each Titania about half the time, you're going to see the Hooded Rider more than half the time. So
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. I think we said our piece on Hooded. Let's move on to our last model, the Wicked Doll. We have alluded to it. We've talked about it a lot. Wicked Dolls.
No. Nope. Don't even try and stop it. That's where it's going.
I pretty much agree. As Landon talked
I have
about,
literally.
I don't really like the 6. I'd rather have 4 stones than 6 models, so I almost always want the Wicked Doll because it has a purpose, and just a body that's significant. It's a ridiculous amount of value for 3 soul stones, guys. It's an easy double wagon push. It's just creep along last AP to be on a point. If you put it on the very edge of the map, there's a good chance you score. What's the secret? The secret strat?
Covert. No. No.
Yeah, covert ops.
It is covert
It's
ops.
covert. Yeah, not ops. It's just covert something.
covert operations.
Covert ops.
Oh,
Yeah,
it is covert ops. Okay, cool. Yeah, where you just have it as one of the 3 named ones, and at the very end you can just be like, all right, cool.
You're talking about a scheme, not a strat. You're talking about public demo.
No, I'm talking about the strat.
Oh, you're talking about the strat
where you choose the 3 secret hit
covert ops then,
and then you just blam. You walk this guy twice, maybe even creep along, walk, and you end on the point, and now he's like, oh fuck, I have to try to kill this stealth model. Why does it have stealth? This 3 soul stones of just annoying.
3 soul stones. 3 soul stones for a stealth significant model. And the thing is, like, against people who don't play against Neverborn very frequently, I always get the question, invariably, if somebody doesn't play against Neverborn all the time, I will do a thing and they'll be like, what do you mean that's significant? That happened. It's wild. This dude's so good for three stones. I think, unironically, Wicked Doll might be the best model in this faction. I don't even know if I have. I want to say I never have. I'm sure I have, but very rarely do I play a single game in Neverborn without at least 1 Wicked Doll. And like it does so much. It can threaten if you want it to. It's just like a random 3-point model that can sometimes do 4 damage. Like, it's fine. I would take this model all the time. Creep along is an amazing move action. It's a bonus, and it's a significant model with stealth and accomplice. We didn't even mention its accomplice, or Longan, I don't think mentioned its accomplice.
Yeah, I don't think you ever use accomplice, but there's an edge case where it can come up.
Yeah, but
it's one of the. I actually don't know if this is a bait or not, so you can speak more to this because I think it is a bait. But a lot of people love slapping Ancient Pact on it to get the extra draw card. I think that's mostly a bait because this is already a model people wanted to kill, unless you're like Pandora, where you're truly hiding this model in your backline the whole time.
If
Guys,
you do
just
that,
don't do it. It's just
if
gonna
you
die.
do that, it's just gonna die. I mean, it's probably already gonna die. People really don't like it, but like, nah.
Yeah, now it's 5 soul stones that need to die instead of 3.
Yeah. I mean, in Titania, certainly you're going to be very active with this model. I don't think that you do that on this. Granted, in the 6 model, you want to take Ancient Pacts scenario that you're citing earlier. You have to because you have no other minions, so you can't draw cards with anything else.
You want those on your beater.
You want the initiative plus.
Initiative plus and not blacking is actually why you want it in that list.
I mean, that's fine, I guess, but that feels so shitty. I don't know. If I take Ancient Pacts, I want to draw cards.
Yeah, it feels bad until you remember how cracked the rest of the upgrade is. You're just upset that you have one of the best upgrades in the game. And you can't take advantage of a second broken part of it.
I would trade it for any number of playable models.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Okay,
super fair.
Cool. All right, we're back. We're back in. Great. We did it. Landon.
Yeah, you see, the fact that this model is good is just revenge for 2nd edition, where it was the only puppet you didn't play in Collodi. So that's why you see it so much now, because you saw so much Collodi in 2nd edition, and you never saw the Wicked Doll. So he's just catching up.
Yeah, it's a 3-stone model that's significant and can move as a bonus action. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, which makes him better than Aeslin.
Which makes him better than. Realistically, this is better than every other model that we've talked about tonight.
I would take 2 Wicked Dolls and 2 Soul Stones over Aeslin in like no circumstances would I not do that. Are you kidding me, dude?
So, anyways, I think we've gushed enough about him.
Yeah.
You would take
Unless
two Wicked
Sam wants
Dolls
to say
and no
something.
Yeah, you would take 2 Wicked Dolls and no Soulstones over Aeslin.
Yeah, I would almost take 1 Wicked Doll and
No,
be
no.
down 5.
Anyways,
Decay's too good of abilities for that to be real. But yeah, anyways, that's it. That's the two of us guys.
Yeah.
Whee!
So one of the things that I guess we've gotten a lot of feedback about is specifically like the how to play, how not to play. So we've talked a lot about 2 different lists of Titania. Basically, one list that is focused on Titania 1, one list that is focused on Titania 2. And like the Titania 1 list, I think, you know, we've called it the Alpha Strike list a lot. You get in, you have some beaters, you do some murder. It's pretty straightforward. You can build the list in such a way that you have very few models and they're all big, expensive dudes. I mean, is there anything particular that you would say always goes in that, Landon or Longton? I mean, we're talking Emissary, we're talking Rider, maybe.
I think Emissary
Titania
is the main go-to because you always want to fast Emissary, and you probably are also bringing Hooded and fasting him and the Kurgan to move them up the board. I think it's just those 4 models. You have 11 Soul Stones left over to play with however you want, but those are going to be like the 4 key models.
Sure.
The only problem of like fasting Hooded is you don't really use him much for the alpha, unless like your opponent's also going in. So for example, like Wedge, it would be really useful too when you are literally going to always be engaged turn 1, but most of the time you're not. Remember, the most important thing to cheat for alphaing is initiative. Never, ever, ever let your opponent go first. You have 2 ancient packs, guys.
And
Yep.
who helps you cheat initiative?
Yeah, for people, like, there's a lot of people who play this game who don't cheat initiative, or they choose to go first. Don't ever do that. Don't be that guy. Turn 1, go second, always. Cheat to go second.
I don't think I've ever had anyone go first on turn 1 at me. At least not anything but Wedge. It's happened in Wedge.
I've had it come up recently enough times to feel like I should tell people about it. Just don't ever pick to go first. It's
unless you're
objectively
Wedge.
bad. Yeah, wedge, and you like need setup, right? Like, you know, the fight's going to start immediately, or you want to get like your focus pulse out before they do. It's a little more debatable there, but in most instances, it's still probably not worth going first.
And then, so Titania 1, you know, assassinating or rush list, whatever you want to call it. Titania 2, we have sort of a different take. There's a lot of tanky stuff. You're going to prioritize putting some upgrades on some Autumn Knights. You're going to prioritize having models set up to be able to just play the strats and the schemes very well. You can sort of do murdering, but like Titania 2 is not nearly as offensive. She's more of a hindrance and support master. Thoughts on that, like, sort of build? I mean, I think you really want to focus on her minions. I don't know if you take all the extra out of keyword stuff. I think you still take Emissary.
Yeah, Emissary, 3 Autumn Knights probably.
Yeah,
maybe only 2.
I think 2. I think 3 Autumn. I mean, they're still 7-point minions, right? I think that 21 points of Autumn Knights probably is excessive. I definitely would take 2 though, because you really want the upgrades on them. They're so unbelievably good. You know, maybe the Boar, probably the Kurgan.
Yeah, I mean, it's like talking
the
about
upgrades on the Autumn Knights, but were we talking about Inhuman Reflexes or Ancient Pack? Because both are good.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I was specifically saying the plan is to get Titania's follower, Titania's champion on them. But yeah, I mean, you know, Inhuman Reflexes on the Autumn Knights also is very good. Ancient Pacts on them is fine, because in addition to all the other shit, you know, they're survivable models that give you the initiative, but they are still minions, so you get to draw cards with it, which is,
and you are going to be attacking enough where not blacking is probably relevant.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Inhumane on them, and I'm not even too against hiring 3. Because I think people prioritize trying to like have a diversity of a list by like having the Waldgeist or having the Bultungin, and I think it's just better to just have more Autumn Knights. But that being said, I also think like Hooded Rider still brings a lot of value. Emissary still brings a lot of value. Kurgan does. I mean, hell, even Candy still brings a good amount of value just because fasting the knights, you're only doing 1 damage to them, and you have enough ways of healing them that you don't feel too blown out about eventually healing them. But I think it's definitely starting to get lower value, at least with Candy. But that's me. I'm a big fan of the knights. They're always, whenever I'll put it this way, like, if you hire 3, maybe put like Ancient Pack on one of them, have it stay further back, maybe be like the Germinate and wait till it gets the upgrade. But essentially, the knights are the only part of the crew I ever find annoying playing against. So from a person who like plays against Titania, I have never once cared about what a Waldgeist is doing or what a Bultungin is doing. What the Autumn Knights are doing like dictates my whole life, especially with challenges. And the more challenges you have, the better challenge gets, because you can just challenge one guy multiple times, and then he can't even attack the guy who challenged him. Like, it's you can completely kill, for example, a Malisaurus Rex by just challenging him 3 times. What are you going to do? Pitch 2 cards to attack a guy?
To be fair, you need a lot of TNs to hit to actually get those 2 challenges on him. But yeah,
sure,
Yeah, that's 4 TNs.
Yeah, but they're 4 TNs. You're pretty, decent statted against, but
it's at least
Yeah.
7s.
it is a 7. Yeah, it is a 7. But that was mostly a meme to bring up the Rex. All in all, I really want to see. I really do think people should be hiring more of the knights.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, so we've talked about some Titania lists and some other things. Maybe I'll throw a pick in of what the tier list looks like in specifically Titania 1 and specifically Titania 2, but we don't have to talk about that right now. So you're at a tournament, your opponent has declared Titania. What are you doing to defeat that?
Anything that is really big one punch stuff. If you listen to me, that starts getting less effective because you can't just kill Waldgeist and Bultungin in 1 hit. But the other models still pretty much go down in like single big punches. Obviously, they can try to stay next to Titania. If it's Titania 1, they can try to stay next to Titania to get the Cruel Disappointment. But even then, you're still probably fine. I don't know. I play arcs. I just freeload with Hoffman and Damien at this moment. So
Yeah, I mean, it's if you have marker removal, you can kind of figure out, like, at the start of the game, like, am I going to be playing the sort of keep on top of her markers game? Because the thing is, Titania can generate the markers she needs to screw with you during her own activation if it's Titania 1. So it's not like you're really going to stay on top of them forever, but if you can somewhat keep on top of them, then, one of her crew's things that it does, like their ability to kind of tangle you down and stop you from getting places, is gone. And then the other thing is that a lot of people, I think, Titania has this reputation. Titania 1 has the reputation of being practically unkillable, and she's not. Like, she's hard to kill, but like lots of masters are hard to kill. You can kill her if you are willing to put in the effort, but you have to decide if you're going to put in that much effort, because there's nothing worse than putting in half the effort or 3/4 of the effort and then deciding you can't do it after all. Like, that sucks. That'll lose you the game. So, like, if your crew has a bunch of like moderate 4s, and like decent attack stats, and especially ranged attacks, so you can just sort of plink her from outside of life leech and outside of her ability to just like slap you in the face, then you could just kill her. And if you kill her, the crew kind of doesn't do a ton.
Yeah, that was pretty much going to be my advice, is that if you're playing into what you suspect is Titania 1, you would just want to bring not tech damage, but like raw damage. But I mean, like, this is where your min 3s come in, your min 2 onslaughters. You're just like, I don't care what tech you have, I'm just going to hit you a bunch for, lots of times. So like your Hinamatsus, your Killjoys, etc. Your Bill Algrins especially. But the other thing that wasn't really mentioned is like out of activation movements, low-key really good here, or like reposition triggers, because if you're going to be hitting Titania, you want to make sure that she's not healing back with the life leech trigger. So if you can just like hit her and then pop out of life leech, so that when you start your next activation, you're not feeding her more health. Or if you like, can chain gang your guy after he's gone out of the bubble or before he goes, that just helps cut down on her little bit of healing. And then also just stunning her, if you have something that stuns on defense, is absolutely huge, because a lot of her damage output comes from you know, the ping on her bonus and a lot of her survivability comes not just from life leech, but the trigger on her attack that heals her for 2 and clears a condition. That's like a ridiculous way for her to get back in the game. Like if you just knock her down to 2, she hits you with that for once and then like just flies away with her trigger on Geminate, you know, because the trigger on Geminate to take her out of combat is really huge, and stun can help turn that off too. So those are my call outs.
Yeah, focus cleansing is a hell of a drug for sure. I have had multiple times where I've had Titania one in basically about to die, and then I activate with her Awaken Hunger, something to heal 2, end a condition, and then just pop out with Germinate. Like if they want to be cagey with Titania, I think that the reputation that Titania gets for being unkillable is if the Titania player knows what they're doing and doesn't want you to kill her, you can sort of make that happen. I don't think that it's possible to do that and also have a huge impact on the game or be murdering stuff. But like sometimes you just want Titania out of the way and you need Titania, or you just want Titania to survive. And I think that in that case, you know, it's possible to just keep her back or run in for a quick strike and then pull away. And it's very, very hard to catch her, which was real good in like GG2, because GG2 had like research mission, and like there were multiple games where I scored research mission because Titania was like one of my only models left to do it, and then just like popped over to where it needed to go, you know. But nowadays maybe less so. But yeah, she's hard to kill, but you got to commit.
So like importantly, we kind of discussed it there, but if you are playing the Titania, you know, you got to make sure you know when to get out of dodge, right? Because a lot of the power for tankiness isn't actually that she's got 14 wounds on her card. It's that you have like a 9-inch disengage for 1 AP.
Yeah, and it's something that the opponent cannot do anything about. It's completely uninvolved in them. It just happens if you have a single 6 of masks and a soulstone, or soulstone, and you're not stunned. Yeah, that's an important one. But even if you are stunned, you just awaken hunger with I guess you can't awaken hunger.
That doesn't work because you
never mind.
Yeah.
Well, you know, just don't let Titania get stunned. You know, that's why you take Serena Bowman. We did it.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. Cool. Well, that has been our Fae tier list. So you know, like and subscribe. Check out our Discord. Links in the description. Thanks a bunch, Landon and Longton. You guys are awesome as always. And you know, if you guys have any questions or comments, or want to see what we put up for the vote next, make sure to leave it in the doobly-doo, in the subscription, in the comments, if you will. You know. So thanks for checking us out, and make sure to come back to the planet soon.